What's up, guys? Ted from Immersion here, and even though it's technically not out for another week, I went out and picked up Out of the Abyss from my Wizards Play Network store today, and while I'm not going to do a full review because I haven't read through the entire book and I haven't got a chance to play it, I'm going to give you everything I'm pretty sure you want to know, and that's what new stuff is in this book. Because honestly, that's what we were all worried about, or at least, in my case, what I was curious about at the very least. Start off up front, no new spells. So if you were thinking there was going to be new spells, there's none of that. If you were thinking there was going to be new character race options, which I thought might have been a thing, also not. So be forewarned, there will be spoilers for a handful of these things. But we're going to start off with, going the wrong direction, magic items. So, is it the first thing? Actually, I lied. We're going to start with background modifications. You've got page right here. You've got two new backgrounds. They seem like they're pretty... They say they can be slotted in... can replace the feature normally granted by his or her character background. They seem to very closely mimic the Outlander's background option as well as the Sage's background option, but I'll read it to you here. Optional feature, a Deep Delver. You have a knack for making your way in the deep places of the world. You can recall the twists and turns of passageways and tunnels such that you can always retrace your steps underground. You're also well acquainted with foraging and survival in the Underdark and can determine when sources of food and water are safe to consume. You can always find sufficient food and water for yourself and up to 5 other people in the Underdark, as long as sustenance is available in the area. Just by the little bit of reading I have done, this could be huge for your party, but also not as fun, because there's an entire section devoted in the first chapter of, like, mushrooms that are, and things that are safe. Like, this mushroom can get you water, and this can be done as food, but, like, this one, if ingested, will inflict a poison, or if set on fire, you can use it as a torch, and it'll burn for 24 hours, but there's a 1 in 6 chance it'll explode. So from a DM perspective, and even for a player's perspective, this could be kind of boring, because you won't have that, like, oh crap, can I eat this mushroom? I don't know, let's see what happens. High enough survival check, or whatever. And the other one is Underdark Experience. You are no casual visitor to the Underdark, but instead have spent considerable time here learning its ways. You are familiar with the various races, civilizations, and settlements of the Underdark, as well as its major routes of travel. If you fail an intelligence check to recall some piece of Underdark lore, you know a source you can consult for the answer unless the DM rules that the lore is unknown. Again, I feel like this is great. These are solid options, and if you want to make this a pretty, I'm going to say an easier campaign, get somebody to take both of these. But, like right in the first chapter, I mean, I think it's no secret at this point, your characters start being captured by Drow. So obviously you had to make your way into the Underdark somehow. But this, I feel like, could make some of the situations you might find yourself in a little less interesting. And then you have 10 bonds here. I'm not going to read through all the bonds because some of these are pretty substantial. I'll just grab one here, number 5. You have long had a curious recurring dream about visiting a vaulted stone library in the depths of the Underdark and becoming lost in the endless lore it holds. So things like that. I liked when they add this. I liked for the Minotaur they added in the Waterborne Unearthed Arcana that they added a new bond, some race-specific bonds. So this is regional-specific bonds, and I'm sure we'll get those in the Sword Coast Adventure Guide as well. Onto the big one, though, which is actually not that much. Only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 new magic items, and they're not even really brand new. So I'm going to start off with this sword you can see over here. It looks very familiar. The Dawnbringer. It's a legendary weapon, a longsword, and it requires attunement by a non-evil character. Essentially, it's a sunblade. Right up front, that's what it is. It is a sunblade mechanically, but while holding the weapon, you can use a reaction to touch a creature with the blade and cast Lesser Restoration on that creature. Once it's used, it can't be used until the next dawn. It also is a sentient longsword with an intelligence of 12, wisdom of 15, charisma of 14. It has hearing and dark vision out to 120 feet. It can speak, read, and understand common, and it can communicate telepathically. It has a feminine voice, And then there's a whole little personality about the background of the sword. Cool, but not that great in my opinion. I mean, the Sunblade isn't a rare sword, and this is a legendary, and the only thing it can really do is once a day lesser restoration, and it can talk to you. Some of the names and the cities and the words in here, if you have trouble pronouncing things, you're probably gonna have to make up your own. But this is Piwafi? I don't know. Piwafwi. It's a cloak of Elvenkind. That's all it is. Except it's made out of spider silk and has the lovely thing that if it's exposed to 1 hour of sunlight without interruption, it disintegrates, basically. I'm sorry, it doesn't disintegrate, it loses its magic. So that is uncommon, requires attunement, which I don't believe a Cloak of Elvenkind requires attunement, so that kind of doesn't make sense. And then there's the same thing, Piwafwi, of fire resistance. So it's basically a Cloak of Elvenkind, but it also grants resistance to fire damage, again, exposed to sunlight without interruption for an hour, and it loses its magic. There's a spell gem, and this is a cooler one. It's sort of similar to like a spell storing ring, and there's a whole table that's bright down on the bottom that works out with the rarity of things based on the spell. A spell gem, its rarity attunement is optional. A spell gem can contain one spell from any class spell list. You become aware of the spell when you learn the gem's properties. While holding the gem, you can cast the spell from it as an action if you know the spell or if the spell is in your class spell list. Doing so doesn't require any components and does not require attunement. The spell then disappears from the gem. If the spell is of a higher level than you can normally cast, you can make an ability check using your spellcasting ability to determine whether you cast it successfully. The DC equals 10 plus the spell's level. On a failed check, the spell disappears from the gem with no other effect. Each spell gem has a maximum level for its spell it can store. The spell level determines the gem's rarity and the stored spell's saving throw DC and attack bonus, as shown in the spell gem table, which is what I was just talking about. You can imbue the spell gem with a spell if you're attuned to it and it's empty. To do so, you cast the spell while holding the gem. The spell is stored in the gem instead of having any effect. Casting the spell must require either one action or 1 minute or longer, and the spell's level must be no higher than the gem's maximum. If the spell belongs to the School of Abjuration and requires material components that are consumed, you must provide them, but they can be worth half as much as normal. Once imbued with a spell, the gem can't be imbued again until the next dawn. Deep Gnomes created these magic gemstones and keep the creation process a secret. It starts as legendary rarity at 7th level, so your uncommon is only for cantrips and 1st level. 2nd and 3rd are rare, and 4th, 5th, and 6th are very rare. And it talks about the different gems. So it's sort of like a Pearl of Power, almost, but or a storing ring, but to a lesser extent. There's the Stone Speaker Crystal, which is rare and requires attunement. Created by Stone Giant Librarians of Gravenhall, this 19-inch long shard of quartz gives you advantage on intelligence investigation checks while it's on your person. It has 10 charges. While holding it, you can use an action to expend some of its charges to cast one of the following spells from it. Speak with Animals for 2 charges, Speak with the Dead for 4 charges, or Speak with Plants for 3 charges. When you cast a divination spell, you can use the crystal in place of one material component that would normally be consumed by the spell at a cost of 1 charge per level of spell. The crystal is not consumed when used this way. The crystal regains 1d6 plus 4 extended charges daily at dawn. If you expend the last charge, roll a d20. On a 1, it vanishes forever. That's actually a huge thing. I mean, it's only divination magic, and I'm off the top of my head, I'm not sure how many divination spells require material components that are consumed. But this would actually be a really cool item to kind of duplicate this effect across for other things. Like, think about any kind of conjuration or I guess necromancy spell that brings people back from the dead that requires like a gem worth X amount of gold. If you had an item that replaced that, it would be huge for you. You'd just be able to cast Resurrection without having to worry about having a 300 gold point diamond to cast Revivify or whatever. And the last one is the Wand of Viscous Globs. I'm just not really going to go over this one. It was posted on the Wizard's website as part of the preview. But essentially, it is a wand that shoots out this viscous material. I believe it does acid damage. Oh, no, it's a restrainment thing. And to dissolve it, you need either oil of etherealness, universal solvent, or alcohol. Same deal, it'll melt away on the 1d6 plus 1 charges. You use the last one, and this will be destroyed if it's in sunlight for 1 hour without interruption. It also has a little note up here about drow-crafted items. Basically, yeah, they lose their magic if they're exposed to sunlight for 1 hour without interruption. So, kind of crappy. Great for the Underdark, but crappy if you want to take it out with you, unless you keep it in a box. As far as, this is the creature section, there is Darrow here, which you can kind of see that guy there. Which is a new race as far as I know, or at least it's new to, ooh, that is really out of focus. Ooh, there we go. is new at least for 5th edition. It does not exist currently. So the Darrow are degenerate Underdark humanoids that resemble small dwarves. Cruel and insane, they take delight in tormenting others, even their own kind. Darrow have blue-gray skin, straight hair that is white or yellow in color. Their uniformly pale white eyes lack both irises and pupils. And I'll just read the origin because it's pretty interesting. Darrow believe they were created by their god, Darinka, but they are actually the result of cruel experiments on dwarves by mind flayers. Like Durgar, the Darrow were a slave race to the mind flayers, but eventually freed themselves. Pretty cool. They have sunlight sensitivity, they have magic resistance. They're fairly similar to Durgar, as far as I can tell. But they have rules here for ones with spellcasting. There's this other, god, they love giving me really difficult things. So this, it's like a vampire, oop, where is that? Can you see that? Yeah, it's like a vampire manta ray. I'm gonna try to read this one, because it's all eyes. Ixitzachital. I don't know. Are aquatic creatures resembling manta rays with small clawed hands at the end of their wings and black eyes gleaming with sinister intelligence. Many creatures mistake them for common manta rays, but this proves to be a deadly mistake. They are as evil as they are cunning, leading to their common nickname, demon rays. They inhabit bodies of fresh and salt water, but their violent nature means that little is known of them. Yeah, they worship Demogorgon. Challenge rating a quarter, so they're actually not that difficult. I thought it would be... Oh, wait, that's just a regular one. The Vampiric one is different. That has a challenge rating of 2. And there's also a Cleric version as well, which is a 5th level spellcaster. Oops. That was weird. Alright, sorry, my computer just started to shut down. And then there's variations for other different kinds of creatures in here. All the different kinds of servants for the various demon lords. You have an awakened Zerkwood, so it's an awakened mushroom. Some pretty interesting stuff. I'm not going to go over all of the demon lords individually, just because there's a ton of information here. But I am going to just flip through and talk challenge rating, just so you guys know what you're kind of looking at. Baphomet, challenge rating 23. Demogorgon, challenge rating 26. Fraz Urblu, challenge rating 23. Grast, challenge rating 24. Juiblex, challenge rating 23. Orcus, challenge rating 26. Inagu, challenge rating 24. Zuckmoy, challenge rating 23. And that's it. And there's a pretty cool afterword here with some sketches, things like that. But yeah. Well, there's actually some other cool stuff. That's most of the brand new stuff that you're going to find, the character-related things. I did read pretty much the first chapter, and I'm not going to go too much into it. It's interesting, the characters that you're going to meet right off the bat, I see a lot of potential for some really cool stuff happening, depending on how you treat the other prisoners. There's this really cool concept I was telling you about the different mushrooms and how they can play huge roles one way or another, whether you know, like, let me eat this or let me not eat this. It also looks like there's a mechanic for when you escape from the prison, you know, essentially to start this adventure, where the drow that you escaped from, if I read this, again, just skimming, that they're constantly pursuing you. So there's like, it's sort of a constant game of cat and mouse, and you can do different things to progress. There's like I forget what they call it. It's like a, where is it? Sorry. Either way, it's essentially, there's levels of a pursuit. That's what I'm thinking of. So like, if your pursuit ahead of them matches their pursuit of you, essentially, so 0, then they catch you. And I don't know what happens there, I didn't read, but like, you can break this bridge, do this thing to set yourself one level of pursuit ahead to constantly stay ahead of these guys so they can't catch you. So that's pretty cool. There's a whole rule about foraging in the Underdark, just about how to find food in general. It actually makes a point to say taking spells like Create Food and Water and Goodberry are actually very useful, because depending on how into this your DM gets, there isn't a lot of food in the Underdark, unless you have that background that I mentioned. There is a whole piece about how the madness works in here, and various exposure doing different things can cause you to become mad, and there's 3 levels of madness. Short-term madness lasts 1d10 minutes, long-term lasts the d10 times 10 hours, and infinite madness lasts until it's cured. And what's interesting is if you're already at level 3 madness and you get afflicted by it again, it goes back to level 1, meaning you attain a second madness. And they reference the madness rules in the Dungeon Master's Guide, but there's also the specific madness tied to the different demon lords. They actually have a whole section here about there will be a lot of downtime days in your travel, so they have a piece here for crafting, a piece about finding different components depending on, if you're a wizard or something like that and you need spell components. So that was pretty interesting. This right here, this is a whole, these 2 pages basically are all about those fungus I was telling you about. Let's see, death, there's a whole section about death in here. Allowing the chips to fall where they may in combat emphasizes the challenging nature of this adventure. After characters start falling just as fast, you might want to give the players some opportunities to return dead characters to life during the lower levels of their progression through Out of the Abyss. It talks about a couple different spells and things like that. If a player character is permanently slain, think about the ways a player might introduce a new character to the Underdark party in the midst of the journey through the Underdark. Convert one of the group's non-player characters, have them meet up somewhere. A monster encountered by the party might be holding hostage, things like that. Here's the pursuit level thing. I was 1 page off. It's interesting, too, they have a lot of different things for random encounters. They have a random encounter for terrain-based encounters, different terrains, and they have a whole set of creature encounters. Tons of information here, lots of tables for different ways things will go, memories and distant discoveries for various layers. Some actually unique takes on different existing creatures, like a rocktopus. So it's a giant octopus just on land. And then there's actually predetermined encounters that have everything set up, which will happen at various points. There's several of those. And then you get into the actual campaign proper. It looks, from what I can tell, this is again Green Ronin's first RPG for Dungeons and Dragons. They have a pretty good pedigree with Dragon Age, A Song of Ice and Fire, Mutants and Masterminds, and Fantasy Age, which there's an ad right here in the back. But it looks to me it looks cleaner than Elemental Evil or Rise of Tiamat or Horde of the Dragon Queen. There looks to be an overabundance of information, a lot of maps, a lot of background stuff. The art is cool, but in my mind, it's better because I love the art, and it's a great part of a D&D book, but there's less art in this, which, could be a good or a bad thing, but there's less art because they put more room for text and tables to give you more information. Huge, pieces about all the different NPCs, here's a table of important NPCs, information about them, and then a whole section about role-playing them. I read through some of the treasure in various places and the rewards. It does seem to give out a fair amount of both treasure in the natural sense and treasure in the more interesting kind of campaign-specific things. But the experience is also really interesting because they kind of go with this, you know, you get your experience. It seems like they're kind of got away from the milestone aspect. This is supposed to get you to 15. There's only like 9 chapters. So like for entrance, you know, this one, it's like you get experience for defeating all the enemies. And then like if you capture and talk to this character, each character gets 150 experience. So there's a lot of bonus type experience like that. And I like that because a lot of the way this is written is if they do X or Y correctly, then they get rewarded for it. And if they don't get any experience. But they won't know that that didn't happen, and I kind of like that. You can get some more stuff if you know, you put the time in. Divide 1740 XP equally among the characters if they cooperate with the guards to do something. If they don't cooperate, they don't get that extra XP. They just get, you know, the standard for the encounter. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, so that's pretty much just a quick. It's 20 minutes long. Go figure. Review of Out of the Abyss, guys. Overall, this is like 200 something pages long to 250. So about on par with some of the other campaign books. I don't have one near me. Like I said, this comes out, I believe, next week officially, which will mean that not only will we stop getting previews for this book, we'll start getting previews for the Sword Coast Adventure Guide. And we're probably going to get a ton more of those for the extra life stream at the beginning of October. The only other useful thing, if you were curious if dragons imprint, there's a section in here, again, there's spoilers, but so heads up, where the characters can stumble across a red dragon egg, and it specifically states if the egg hatches, it automatically bonds to the first person it sees. So, red dragon. They, at least, I mean, the most evil of dragons, arguably, they bond and imprint. So there's the potential for nature versus nurture there. If you were to find a bad dragon egg, or a chromatic dragon egg, I should say, an evil one, and you raised it, it might obey you. It might, you know, kill other people, but it probably would obey you. Anyway, guys, look for a more in-depth review of Out of the Abyss after I've actually read the entire book. And a more specific review after it's actually been played through. I'd be interested to see if you guys have started playing, if you're in the Adventure League and they just started this. What are your experiences? Are you interested in visiting Menzoberranzan and all the various interesting areas of the Underdark? I have a mixture on this because obviously a lot of the stuff in the Underdark is absolutely terrifying. And I would not want to run into it as a player, but totally controlling it as a DM is right up my alley. Let them deal with all the crazy mind flayers. I don't want my character having to get his brain sucked out. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.